Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here tonight. So we are really happy to welcome you in Singapore and also overseas, because we know that we have many different attendees from overseas as well. So thank you, Felicia, and thank you, Design Singapore, for hosting us also tonight. It's a pleasure to once again do this talk together. And so together with me today, Ola.
Thank you very much, Jan, and we're so pleased to do this talk with you guys. This is the fourth one in our series of crafting experiences events. So today we're actually going to be talking about digital placemaking. So we all know the global environment has seen very immense changes over the last years, and even so rapidly with the pandemic. So to recreate in-person experiences in community spaces, brands and creative are turning more and more to technological tools and platforms. It is a reminder that spaces we inhabit or visit are not purely functional. They also serve to inform and enhance the human experience and to connect to our environments and each other. So in this talk, we're going to be joined by three such multifaceted experiential designers from Singapore and Canada as we discuss digital placemaking, immersive design, and the use of digital tools for multi-sensorial spatial experiences. We will learn how these creatives are using a mix of traditional and digital tools to create new placemaking opportunities and experiences to engage their audience.
Thank you, Ola, for introducing the topic of the talk tonight. So maybe on the next slide, please. So before we embark into this journey today, just to remind a little bit what is experiential design and why is it important. So the next slide. So here, as we can see, so the growing dependence on technological devices extensively changing human behavior in day-to-day life. So creating engagement in public spaces with conventional method is increasingly more challenging because we are all with our mobile device, and that's also what we'll be talking about today in digital placemaking. So in here, so the major categories of experiential design: exhibition design, marketing, entertainment, placemaking, and environmental graphics. Next, please. So what is exhibition design? It is this hybrid of storytelling and environment often found in museums and art galleries. On the marketing side, so sensory experiences like Times Square in New York, like super famous, guerrilla marketing and product experiences and launches. Next. So when we look at entertainment, concerts and events that are finally coming back to Singapore, so these experiences scale from small to very big. Regarding the environmental graphics, so messages, information, or imagery that's attuned to the environment that is displayed in. And finally, the one that we'll be talking about today, so placemaking, public installations and landmarks which define the space around us. So the core component of experiential graphic design, signage and wayfinding, interpretive and placemaking once again. So signage and wayfinding, those are solutions that are more than just signage. It's like pathway, visual cues, landmarks, and so on. So everything that is surrounding us, that is helping us to move around. Interpretive, so this is something that we usually find in exhibitions, in galleries. So it is how we interpret the stories about like concept and object and so on, and how we deliver this story to the people. And the last one, the one again that we'll be talking about today, placemaking, that creates distinctive image for a site and can be expressed in several ways. So all of that provides a certain framework for communication, and it is again to be as engaging as possible, and that basically encompasses all of the built environment. So now, your turn.
So before we jump into getting to know our speakers a little bit better, we also want to introduce those who are joining us for the first time, or reintroduce those that are joining again. What is SEGD? So SEGD is really an organization that connects people to place. So it exists to educate, connect, and inspire the global community. So who are we, what do we do, and what have we done this year, last year, as our series of talks? So we are a community of diverse thinking, but we're not just architects or designers. We really come for all different ways of life. We are multidisciplinary, and we support design thinking and doing. We are passionate and personable, and we are about meaningful inspiration and engagement. We share our love for design. So our first event was on environmental graphics and wayfinding design, and we had such esteemed speakers as Kelly Chang, Yalang Yu, and Arthur Chin, and William Harold Wong from Malaysia. In our second event, we focused on exhibition and interpretive design, joined by Jackson Tan, Laura Miyato, and Lunai Chairaporn. In the crafting experience number 3, we focused on designing for good experiences, and we were joined by Steve Lawler, Larry Pei, and Eric Wijaya from Indonesia. So join us, communicate with us, engage with us, and be a part of this regional and global community. You can find out more about our future events at SEGD.org under the Singapore chapter event. And you can also get started with the membership under Special Southeast Asia rate, which is a special rate that you can find also on SEGD's website. You can access a members only resource, listing of podcasts and firm bios, invitations to speak, publish news, and contribute content. And you can also receive multiple discounts on award submissions, event registration, and training. So let us get to know our speakers.
Let's get to know our speakers. So David, Olivier, and Cheryl. Of course, we will be sharing a little bit more about them, but we will do our now landmark kind of ice-breaking moment. So we will start with what we call the fast and curious. So these are really short questions to our speakers to get to know them. And it is something fast, it is something curious. So with much further ado, let's welcome on stage David. So David, please come on stage. He's supposed to. Yes, David, you're here.
Hi, David.
Okay. Hi, David.
Good to see you.
Cool. So, okay, let's start. Next. So, pen or pencil?
Pencil.
Timeless or trendy?
Timeless.
Grayscale or color?
I'm gonna say grayscale.
A grayscale. Okay, PC or Mac?
Definitely Mac.
Yes. High tech or low tech?
Low tech.
Yes. Control or chaos?
It's gonna be control for me.
Okay, so Olivier, come on stage. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Olivier, come on stage.
Hello.
Hello. So this is your turn. Let's take it away.
Amazing.
Less is more, or more is less?
No, more is more. More is more.
More is more.
I'll go for less is more.
Less is more. Digital or manual?
Definitely digital.
Digital. Fast or cheap?
Ooh, fast.
Portrait or landscape?
Landscape.
Immersive or subversive?
For us, yeah, immersive.
Okay. PowerPoint or no point?
No point at all.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, Cheryl, your turn. So all the way from Canada. So come on stage, on virtual stage. So your turn now.
There we go. Hi, nice to see everybody, virtually
Yes.
at least.
So linear or organic?
Oh, definitely organic.
Simple or complex?
Complex.
Complex. Modular or bespoke?
Bespoke. Bespoke for sure. These are easy.
Okay, temporary or permanent?
Temporary.
Temporary. Physical or digital?
Ooh, digital, I would tend to say.
Digital, all right. And so, okay, thanks again, Cheryl. So now we will continue with our show and tell. So these are longer questions. Well, just the questions are longer than the fast and curious. And then, so these are questions that we will ask our speakers and that are more about who they are, the way that they work, the way that they create, and so on. So David, I will welcome you once again on stage.
Hi,
David. So, hello again. So, what is your favorite space to work from?
For me, it's a little bit different. I couldn't work in a singular space. For me, I need to go at least 2 or 3 spaces. So if I'm at home, it's going to be in my bedroom. I have a workshop table. If not, I will head on to my kitchen table. In a single day, I will rotate around. And if it's in my office, I will either sit in my meeting table, my workshop table, or my personal table. So I need to go around.
Sure.
Going too fast. Okay, so DSG, stop going too fast. So, what led you to venture into digital placemaking?
Okay, I was involved in the digital scene quite early when Web 1.0 started. So it was very virtual for me. So moving on, I was thinking, can I bring the digital world into the physical space? Could I give innate objects meaning and smartness? And it was a natural flow for me to move from virtual to digital placemaking.
Okay. So the last question, so the next slide. So what is one object in your office or room that you always keep nearby when working?
Okay, surprisingly, it's going to be the drill.
Wow. That's definitely
because I do so much installation and prototype, and that is one tool that will help me reach and finish my prototype quickly.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks a lot, David. So we will.
Thank you, David. So next
you.
we will have Olivier again to share some of his insights about his day-to-day life and work.
Super.
So in layman's term, what's one unique digital tool that's invaluable to your day-to-day work?
Well, invaluable for me, I think, okay, it sounds pretty nerdy, but it's my Apple Watch because it reminds me to keep on moving, you know, otherwise I'm only sitting and working. It reminds me to stand up.
Wonderful. So what do you think will be the next trend or the big thing in digital placemaking?
Well, the next big thing, well, it's basically reimagining our culture and our arts by really coming together online, but more in an immersive and 3D way. Think about Web 3.0, metaverse kind of style.
Great.
Yeah, the metaverse. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and last question. What is the most unexpected thing that you might have on your work desk?
And you need to show it.
Okay, then I'm in trouble because it's actually my bonsai tree that I really take care of to remind me. It's behind me. I'll grab it later so you guys can see it. I'm very proud of it. Okay, I'll bring it in.
Later. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot.
Cool, thank you.
And so the last speaker, so Cheryl, your turn for our show and tell. So to also like share with our audience the way that you work, the way that you create. So Cheryl, you can come on stage. So not Olivier, but Cheryl. I don't know where you are. So just...
Yeah, there's a bit of a delay because I've stopped my video.
Because you're in Canada.
Yeah, that must be it.
Okay, so what led you to venture into digital placemaking?
So I worked for a long time in the performing arts, and I found it was a really great way to bring stories to people. And I feel that the developments in technology have actually allowed us to bring this way of telling stories into the public realm and reach a greater audience than you do in a theater, for instance, or in a museum.
Okay, thanks a lot. So on the next question, so what is one thing in your office or room that you always keep nearby when you work?
Well, I actually don't have it with me, but it's my Swiss Army knife. It's useful for everything. You never know when you're going to need it. And, you know, when you have late night meetings, have a little bit of a glass of wine while you're having your last meeting of the day. It helps to open the bottle of wine. So I always have my Swiss Army knife with me.
Okay. And so how has social media impacted digital placemaking?
Well, it's funny because so many of our clients say, okay, this has to be Instagrammable, right? It's this whole notion of shareability. And I think that might bring a superficiality sometimes to what we do because it's or what the clients expect from us. And so on one way, and I'll talk about it a bit later, it allows a greater impact in the storytelling that we do, but in another way, it's a double-sided sword, I believe, because it does bring us to this instantaneous shareability that lacks the depth of, I think, what real placemaking should be.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing this insight. So thanks to our three speakers. And so now we will move into the next chapter of our talk today, which is the one that everyone is waiting for, which is basically what our speakers will be sharing about their experiences, their ideas, their passion. So in this is a very specific format that we are having. So it is basically 24 slides in 24 seconds. So each slide will last for 24 seconds. So I know that the speakers may be like, oh, I have to do it. So so basically we'll embark on that. But before this, just would like maybe Ola to share a little bit about David before he talks.
Sure. Now is the time to really introduce our speakers and give them give a background about each one's experience. So first up is David Theo, the Chief Creative Technologist, from Insert Coin. So David is a founder of the Singapore-based company that specializes in bringing interactive and playful contraptions to retail, F&B, and public spaces. He's constantly looking out for new and unexpected ways to create magical moments to delight his visitors. Some of his clients include Google, Hermes, Uniqlo, Singapore Changi Airport, F1, and Singapore Science Center. Notable projects by David include the Singapore World Expo, Singapore Pavilion, and numerous other interactive and engaging works that were created to mesmerize visitors and audiences. So David, get ready. It is your time to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the wonderful stuff that you do.
Thank you. Hi, for the longest time, I've been looking forward to making since young. I remember creating contraptions that will make my friend laugh, create new origami's and show off to my friends. And then Web 1.0 came, I got involved and created HTML websites. They were very much static. And I picked up JavaScript on the way as well. And then I bumped into a website by Yogob Nagamura. And he showed us that websites could be very dynamic and engaging. I straight away fell in love with this interactive medium. I spent the next few years trying to master it, learn it, and then after that, I could create interactive websites on my own. And then came the maker movement and introduced us a lot of digital fabrication tools. At the center of it is this 3D printer. I got one, I got so excited because I could make anything I could imagine. And then I was thinking, could I pair making and interactive medium together? So today I brought 4 projects to show what we can do together with all these tools. And I also talk a little bit about behind the scenes, how we do what we do. Okay, first up project is this space in Changi Airport Terminal 4. It's a viewing gallery. Most of the time it's empty. So what we did was created 3 projections on the floor to showcase Singapore's cityscape, Singapore's favorite fruits, and then Singapore greeneries. And then after we deploy, parents will bring their children and play in this environment. Behind the scene, we decided to go old school. So what we propose to the client is we have a strong light source and we send this light source through 3 independently moving discs. And in a way, we could create an endless scenery. So in this case, we create an animation to show what we're trying to do is the foreground is going to move a lot faster than the background. And if you combine this together, shine a light through, it will create a story. In this sense, we're creating the Singapore greenery story. And then that was approved. We went on to find a strong enough light source and also a light source that will expand our disc 10 times so that people can see the image being projected. So we also created a mechanized method to spin this 3 discs in different speed such that it have a parallax scrolling effect. Okay, we meet our first technical hurdle when we're trying to create this graphic on a disc. The first one was we realized if we cut vinyl, then we will be missing a lot of details. The next, we tried UV printing directly onto the acrylic disc, but we find that there's a lot of color pigmentation when we expand this 10 times. And we eventually found this laser etching method at 120 DPI, 1200 DPI, and we could cut out all the details that we required. The last step, we went on to place color overlay over these 3 discs, assemble this, create a 3D projection of this, and we hang out on the space of the viewing gallery. The next project is also in Changi Airport, it's internal one. They were going through a series of upgrades, making self-check-in counters, and they were going to hot up this space for a year. The client came to us and asked us what we could do to this hoarding rather than have a very cold space and a flat wall. So we worked with a wonderful illustrator, Esther, to come up with a series of 9 windows, very animated windows, which 6 is interactive. I have a little video to show what we did. So it's about a tourist as a bird coming to Singapore, and as it fly through, what are the different sights and sounds they could see in Singapore. Like they fly through and see a different landscape and unique buildings of Singapore, and fly through Sentosa or Resort Island, and then they could visit our residents and what they do day to day. Behind the scenes, we have a lot of graphic to cut out. So what we did was we painstakingly cut out every single detail, put up the pieces, and then layer them, eventually to create like a pop-up effect, a 3D effect for every single window. And then we went on to mechanize. Gosh, there's this 9 windows we have to mechanize. Like this first one is how we use a single shaft with 3 different cams to shift these clouds up and down in different pace. Second one is how we use a rotation motion to create a sailing boat rocking back and forth effect. And the last one, we prototype different pop-up peekaboo mechanism to create this lion popping up from the bushes. But this one was a little bit more complex because this was so small, it couldn't hide our motor. So we came up with a solution of having a 2 mm shaft and give it a single rotation. So this is the primary motion. And from the primary motion, we kind of split it out into secondary motion. So if you turn this thing around, you can see the single shaft that's rotating, and then how it produces secondary motion to shift the arm, the upper torso, to create this animated scene of this 2-person playing checkers back and forth. So with all this detail and craft and effort that we put in, all that we really wanted to do is to bring people closer together, parents, seniors, and then we want to evoke a sense of wonder, a sense of discovery. Most importantly, we sincerely hope that as they come Singapore, they live Singapore, they will be feeling happy. This led us to the next project, which is also a window to showcase the up-and-coming shopping experience of Jewel. And wonderful thing about this shopping experience is there's a 40-meter rain vortex, and there's a lot of trees around this shopping center. So this is like a window into that space before it was open. We created interactions out of these 3 interactions that says whistle to me, that says sign on me, and then insert coin to donate. So in the interaction of whistle to me, the visitors would have to whistle to the sensor, and then our elephant will kind of come alive. The orangutan will start to pound on the ground. And this is the process of us making, we 3D render this thing, 3D printed it, and then we finish up with a green moss. The next is there's this portion where the user will shine a torchlight, and then it will kind of wake the plants and the trees as if you're the sunlight. We give energy to the plants and they start to grow. All right. And we use a servo and push rod to kind of raise and lower the trees. Okay, this is one shot that's behind the scene. In this single window, we have like 40 motors to control, lightings to control. Eventually, we install 2 TVs there to create animation. So this is the role of technologies to tame this beast and make sure we integrate all these elements to create a magical moment for the visitors. Okay, you can see this is pre-COVID times, people using the torchlight to shine on our sensor, which the tree will grow. And then on the bottom, where some people couldn't whistle and realize they will use their handphone to play a tune, and that will activate our sensor, and then the orangutan, the trees, the elephant is going to greet them. Okay, eventually, we ask people to insert coin to donate, but somehow people feel that this is like the wishing well. They not only insert coin, they throw a lot of dollar notes. And we were surprised, but we're happy that all this is being donated to charity. Okay, our last project is Uniqlo approached us to kind of educate and help them sell Airism. It's a very good product. It's a t-shirt material that's cooling, spreads perspiration quickly, and then cools the person down. We created two solutions for them. One is to create a big t-shirt with paper windmill around them to show the coolness of this material. And then second installation, we create cloud pillows for them to hug so that people can know how soft this material is. The team loves it, but the marketing people came back and say, it looks cool, but are you going to sell more t-shirts with that? So we were stunned and we were stuck for a while. And out of frustration, I looked at Airism material under the microscope. And then I realized it's neatly formed weave. And if I sprinkle water into it, it spreads very quickly. And then if I blow on it, I realized all the droplets quickly evaporated. There was this aha moment because I was surprised this tech actually works. So we pitched back to Uniqlo a solution. So we're gonna really hang up a cotton t-shirt and Airism and build two robot arms just to do that. We have microscope at the end of our robot arm, water sprinkler, and a fan. And we could let users choose where they perspire more, and the robot arm will go to that part of the t-shirt. And then we'll show side-by-side comparison of how the Airism material works against the cotton. And most of the time, Airism works perfectly. And then we had this machine, this robot machine built. We couldn't find a robot arm that will have that 3D integrated. So we created our own arms, 3D designed our arm, 3D printed it, research on what motor to use, assemble it, and then we created our robot arms. Next, the machine got rove around in Singapore for 20 days, and every single day there was about 200 participants that got to know more about Airism. And original Uniqlo kind of picked this up. They wanted us to build machines that we sent to Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. That's all the projects I'm sharing today. I'm happy to have reconnected to my making self through all these projects. And it kind of brings me back to a time where I create contraptions to make my buddies laugh, but now I could make contraptions and put a smile on more people around me. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David, and thank you for concluding on that note of like putting a smile on the face, because as we were listening to you and watching, clearly we were smiling. And it's quite a fantastic and magical, very magical moment. So thanks a lot for all of this. So now the next speaker, so Olivier Boss, the Chief Inspiration Officer at MeshMind. So can you come on stage, please? And I will do a brief introduction about you, Olivier. So Olivier Boss, he spearheads creative technology ideation from concept to reality and assists with business strategy at MeshMind. So Olivier's interests revolve around exploring the meaningful intersection between technology and art, and his vast knowledge of tech trends is usefully aligned with his passion for using technology for good causes worldwide. So Olivier helps to foster an uplifting environment by creating meaningful relationships with the people around him. So he works hard to nurture genuine, lasting relationships between artists, creative technologies, and multinational organizations to deliver impactful educational projects and programs. So super exciting. I can't wait to listen to your presentation. So the floor is yours, Olivier. Please come on stage.
Super. Thank you so much, Jan. And thank you for having me, of course, over here. So yeah, my name is Oliver Bos. You can just say Ollie, by the way, makes it easier. So yeah, I am Chief Inspiration Officer at Mesh Minds, funky name. But yeah, I'm originally from Amsterdam and almost 5 years now in Singapore. So I'm a tech enthusiast and really passionate about blending art and technology together for a sustainable future, and especially during these exciting new times. All right. So let's talk a bit about who we are as Mesh Minds. So we are a network of strategists, partnership brokers, creators, curators, but also program managers. And we are united by a belief that art and technology can power a sustainable and inclusive future. So we hope to drive awareness, ignite conversations, and inspire behavioral change for the sustainable development of people and our planet. All right, so over the last couple of years, we've been producing several programs and campaigns for the world's most responsible companies out there. So over here, you see several augmented reality effects for social media that we made in-house, but also in collaboration with amazing artists and creators here in Southeast Asia. So yeah, what we aim to do is to enable a metaverse for people and planet, focusing on producing immersive experiences and educating the public on what they can do to help and make the world an even better place for our future. So yeah, I will bring you through some of our projects as XR educators as well. Well, why XR or extended reality? So extended reality is an umbrella term used to describe immersive technologies that can merge the physical and virtual worlds. So think of AR using your phone, and then you have virtual reality using a virtual reality headset. So let me just talk you through about our recent projects and some from the past. All right, here you see Art Reimagined Korea. It just launched basically. And it's a first of its kind collaboration in South Korea, where Meta partnered up with traditional Korean artists and empowering them to give more people the opportunity to experience their art through augmented reality and virtual reality. So we collaborated with the 3 traditional artists from South Korea. We developed 6 original AR effects inspired by the work of the artist. So it's been showcased virtually and physically over a month-long exhibition at Meta in South Korea. So do check it out. All right, and here you see Please Insert Women, which was happening in 2021, yeah. And this is world's first creative technology incubation program for women and non-binary artists in Southeast Asia. This was in collaboration with Net-a-Porter. We incubated 4 Singapore-based women artists. So we developed with them original AR art, which was inspired by 9 attributes of sustainable fashion and beauty. This also has been showcased virtually, but also physically over a month-long public exhibition at Capella here in Singapore. That is also cool, and this is Mumu Park. This happened in 2021 as well, and this was Asia's first drive-through exhibition powered by Hyundai's latest electric vehicles and Spark AR, which is Meta's AR development platform. So we collaborated with 8 Singapore-based artists and highlighted themes on air pollution and the preservation of our planet's ecological biodiversity, where we had over 8,000 visitors over 2 months. We engaged over 350,000 people online with the AR selfie and mural effects. And this was in partnership with the Singapore Chinese Cultural Center and the United Nations Environment Programme. Okay, here you see Please Insert Human back all the way in 2019. We did this in Shanghai, which is China's first virtual reality incubation program, which was powered by Oculus. So 10 visual artists transformed into VR artists over 3 months. So we focused on highlighting Chinese culture and folklore and connected artists across geographical boundaries through remote workshops and hosted by renowned international VR artists as well. All right. Yes, and this is MeshMinds 2.0 Art X Tech for Good, which is our second showcase that we hosted at the Art Science Museum here in Singapore. We developed Southeast Asia's first technology incubation program. So we incubated over 20 impact artists and creative technologists, where we co-produced 20 plus immersive multi-sensory experiences and engaging over 10,000 visitors in 10 days. So it was also heavily supported by Apple and the United Nations Environment Program, bringing people together, learning about art and technology for good. All right, so the previous programs and experience do resemble digital placemaking somewhat, because it's bringing people together online and offline. So let's just dive deep into some of the other projects that we produced on this subject. So over here, this is also a while back, you'll see the community thread for Singapore Design Week in 2019. And it actually started at the National Design Center in Singapore. So here you see how augmented reality works with the video. All right. So it's an immersive AR experience that brings street art and history to life. It was commissioned by UNESCO Creative Cities in Australia and Singapore through Sydney City of Film. And the project is a cross-disciplinary collaboration that featured creatives from Australia and Singapore. So it's an AR experience by UNESCO to revisit the past and experience murals that come to life. Sadly, it's not active anymore, but it was a very interactive experience and also inclusive, where you have an AR wayfinding map and make murals come to life, and also hear about the story of the mural itself and narrated by a Singapore girl. All right, there's another video, which is Sustainable Singapore 2020 that we produced in reaction to the start of the pandemic. So over here, you see people interacting with AR art powered by Artivive, which is also an AR platform. It's a very cool tool, so do check it out, where you can make your art come to life. It has been toured around quite a lot already, this exhibition. It's both online and offline. So we basically empower 20 of the best and emerging established artists from Singapore to produce original AR artworks on the theme of Sustainable Singapore and the Sustainable Development Goals using Artivive. So 5 of these artworks have been selected for a permanent exhibition as well at the National Forest Museum in Korea. So together with Artivive, it also had exhibitions and toured around galleries and shows in Austria, Korea, and Germany. And it could also be experienced just on your laptop on a virtual microsite. Cool. This is our ART Trail, which happened in 2020. So there was also during Singapore Art Week, we had Singapore's first public art walking trail, which was powered by Meta's Spark AR that augments 6 sculptures by local pioneer artists using digital placemaking technology. So we collaborated with these 6 local pioneer artists, which was in partnership with the National Arts Council and powered by Spark AR from Meta. So you see 2 examples of the 6 AR effects that we produced here. On the left, you see the Time Tree by Robert Zhao with its AR effect that we produced. And then on the right, you see Kumari Nahapan's Pembungan, which is a 45-meter large bronze sculpture, which is actually the largest bronze sculpture in Singapore that we augmented and extended the narrative of Nahapan's interest in representing local flora and fauna. So the movement in the AR effect signifies the trade coming from the bay into the city of flora and fauna. All right, then we came back with ART Trail this year, but now in transit, which was on the MRT lines. So in collaboration with the LTA, NAC, and the Meta Open Arts, it invited people to look at existing art found at 6 downtown line stations through augmented reality, right? So we collaborated with 4 local artists and students from NAFA and LaSalle, where we created 12 unique AR effects across 6 MRT stations in the downtown, on the downtown line. So it was part of a 10-day exhibition during this year's Singapore Art Week, and some are still out there. So you can check them out, how we reimagined art on the downtown lines and transformed it into augmented reality effects that you could easily share with your friends and family across the globe. Yeah, we also collaborated with Uniqlo, and here you see Shockscape was very cool, which is an interactive AR mural for Uniqlo in Singapore in celebration of National Day 2021. Shockscape also celebrates and brings to life Singapore's famous hawker culture. All right. So we collaborate with the artist 8-Eyed Spud, and when you scan the artwork in the store, you learn about Singapore's hawker culture in an interactive and playful way, where you get a little quiz, and therefore also in the end you could turn around the camera and take a selfie with their art as well. All right, so now I've brain dumped you with what we do and what we've done with our experience project, right? So now it's time to think a bit about the future, and such as the metaverse or a metaverse, which I just mentioned. So thinking what's next, are we going to experience new ways of coming together, using technology, being more immersed, or how we can enjoy art together, crossing borders in an immersive way? Or will it be a blend between digital and the physical world? The jury's still out, we don't know, but we are here to make sure to preserve our cultural heritage as a driver for sustainability using technology for people and planet. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for listening. And yeah, also here virtually. Do check us out on meshminds.com and follow us on Meshminds. And yeah, hope to catch you guys online and maybe here around in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ollie. It's really inspiring to see the projects and how the digital, how you're bringing sort of the artistic aspect into, you know, into sort of the next level and connecting artists and technology. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
So our next speaker, last but certainly not least, from Canada, joining us all the way from Canada, it's Cheryl Catterall, Creative Director of Moment Factory. So Moment Factory has been active in Singapore as well. So we want to invite Cheryl to speak to our audiences, to share about her projects and her career. So her career spans 25 years, and she has specialized in heading up multidisciplinary teams to deliver high impact experiences with a particular focus of integration of new media technologies into architectural and also public space design. So drawing on her professional degree in architecture and this certificate in set and costume design, her career has really followed a path leading from installation and performing arts to immersive exhibition design and the creation of multimedia experiences for permanent and temporary installations in both institutional and corporate settings. Her passion is the design of responsive environments where digital engagement is seamlessly woven into architectural and citizen context. So without further ado, Cheryl, please take it away.
All right. Thank you. So as Ola said, I did start out my life as an architect. I quickly veered over into the performing arts. And like David, I'm an early adopter. I was using multimedia technology starting in the late 90s. So I've grown up with this through my career. And here I am a number of years later talking to you about digital placemaking. So as I was preparing for this conference, I thought, let's start from a standing point, and I looked at what is placemaking and how do we define it? So out of the 7 million results that Google gave me, the one that I like best is that placemaking is a process. It's a means to an end and the creation of quality places. So I'll go through this a little bit more and how I see this, but the next step is to talk about how this definition can extend out to digital placemaking. So often when we talk about digital placemaking, we talk about portable digital devices that sort of unearth stories about a place. And while this is interesting and in one facet of digital placemaking, I think it's a bit limited because it's, for me, what gets me excited is about bringing people together and sharing around public spaces. So to start about, I think let's start about what it's not before we start defining what it is. So a lot of people feel that digital in the public sphere is very aggressive and market driven. And while this is true, I like to go back to kind of basics. And when we talk about public spaces, go back to Aldo Rossi. So he says that one can say that the city itself is the collective memory of its people, and like memory, it's associated with objects and places. The city is the locus of the collective memory. So while you're thinking about this, we'll touch on this later, but look at the photo in the background. It's the Jacques Cartier Bridge in Montreal, the city where I live, taken around the turn of the 19th century. We're going to get back to this. And then how do you invest a memory? How do you invest a monument over and over as collective memory shifts? So let's go back even further before cities existed and start talking about the campfire. I had an experience working with the Cree, which is an indigenous community in Northern Canada. And we're working on an archaeological project. They're a nomadic culture that sort of follows the animals around during the hunting seasons, but they found that remains of fires that were at the same place over thousands and thousands of years. So for me, it's not about the city, it's not about like objects like Rossi said, but it's really where are the places where we tell our stories. So I'm going to start off by talking what is a digital campfire by using a Singaporean example. So this is Shangi Experiences, Theater of Experience. This is a Moment Factory project in the waiting areas at the airport. And what's interesting, it's a kind of illusion between digital and physical. And at one point, what appears to be architecture opens up and lets you into the intimacy of a Singaporean household's living room. So what's really great about this is it brings together people who don't know Singaporean culture, but also Singaporeans who sort of feel a sense of warmth or nostalgia about stories they might already know. I feel that this is a bit limited though, this notion of the digital campfire. So let's talk back about creative processes, because I think placemaking for me is a process and not a result. So the creative process behind multimedia, and I'll use the word multimedia placemaking instead of digital, because as we're getting into the metaverse, I believe it's more encompassing. So it invigorates and reinvests our common spaces with evolving and culturally rich narratives. It augments physical public space with real-time digital experience that foster a collective sense of belonging. So going back to the bridge, this is a project where a number of creative companies in Montreal collaborated together to actually bring a digital layer onto the Jacques Cartier Bridge, which is one of the main icons of the city of Montreal. You can't see a Montreal T-shirt that doesn't show this. So it's a kind of double intervention, one which is projected lighting, which is a storytelling that shifts with the seasons, and the other one is an interactive layer that's activated by a hashtag. So there's LED lights on the side that become more active or less active as people are engaged. And what's really interesting about this project is also the system that allows us to sort of bring to the forefront and be very reactive to what's actually going on in current events. So we were asked, Moment Factory was asked to bring hope to the face of, in the face of pandemic during the, obviously during the pandemic when we were all in lockdown and actually couldn't get out. So for us here in Canada, the rainbow is the symbol of hope and resilience in face of the pandemic. So when we go back to the social media question that was asked earlier, people actually weren't going out in the space to see it, but it became very popular on social media and a way of sharing this common reality that we're all living through and still are living through right now. So getting back to COVID, obviously our habits have significantly changed. And how do you start putting into place digital placemaking when no model exists anymore? We don't know how people are going to react when you go back into space. We don't know how this hybrid life that we've had in the last 2 years is going to play out. So, so I'm going to propose a kind of system of how we can work, a process, as you will, to reinvest our public spaces and bring people back and connecting together. I'm going to show an example of this. This is a project that was done obviously before pandemic, but at Banff National Park, where the digital technology was actually portable technology. There were groups of 10 that each had a piece of technology. And as they went on a trek, they each participated and brought out different parts of the story as they moved through the space of the park. So you don't need this large infrastructure. For instance, the Jacques Cartier Bridge project was a $30 million project, and nobody's willing to put that kind of money in right now, I think, as there's so much uncertainty, but you can do it quite simply and you can achieve the same results. So I just threw up a little bit of a model. I'll go through some projects that sort of express this later. But to me, it's all about generating shared benefits and value. And if we do it in an agile fashion, and obviously when we work in digital technologies, we work in a very agile way. It's not a kind of waterfall way of working. But if you create a spark, bring people back, measure it, using digital technologies allows us to collect data and measure engagement and sort of see what works, what doesn't work. And then that allows it to scale it up and to build it and to evolve the projects that we've already established. Next. So multimedia placemaking in this context offers a unique means to connect citizens, places, and systems in real time. This approach fosters adaptable alliances that maximize shared value, rallying multiple stakeholders. And we talk about stakeholders, we talk about the communities, but we also talk about the people, the funding instances, and the governments that are putting in place these means for us to reconnect together. So let's put it on to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit about stakeholders. So for those of us who've worked in the public realm, you understand that there's enormous amounts of bees sort of buzzing around the honeypot, and we have to find ways of saying what's a shared value. To me, it's about this process that allows us to sort of understand each other and work together, but also having a strong creative vision that drives us together and drives us in the same line to amplify social purpose and to create common value. Both of these things then foster reputational value and contribute to earned media value, which obviously feeds back to the business community and to the government and brings value to them so that we're all working together towards the same ends. Again, this is all about feasibility and how we get people together to work and have different facets that contribute to society on a greater level, both for the audiences that is experiencing these interventions and for the people that are funding it and supporting it and structuring it, such as our governments. So I'm going to go through a number of different projects that show different ways that this can be done. And at the end, it becomes, I guess, a toolbox of what is digital placemaking and what is multimedia placemaking. I'm going to start with this project, which is actually a hybrid project done during the pandemic. It's a yearly project as a commemoration for a mass killing that occurred in Montreal. And in this year, for the first time, the public wasn't allowed to be there. It was hybrid. There was a Facebook Live, but the government officials were there. The elected officials were there. And what's really interesting is it became a communal event where people participated in Facebook. It could be seen. It was obviously very shareable, but then it became something where the politicians were there as well. And there were people there live. Another thing is there's a permanent infrastructure in Montreal that allows for projection, large-scale projection mapping. But then this is a project where we brought in obviously containers and a smaller projector and a microphone where people were given a voice. So this is a very exclusive activity about bringing people into the public sphere, giving them a voice. And then we connected to the larger scale projectors that were actually interpreting, the system was interpreting what was being said and reprojecting it larger on the other building that you don't see in this picture. But what's interesting, again, it just gives a larger resonance to sort of bringing people together and taking a voice in public. The other thing that you can do is you can invest construction sites. This was a light rail construction site that was actually late. It was going to be delivered late. And so we created a kind of walkthrough of the space using projection, using lighting, using interactive mediums to bring the space to life. This is a project done with the Windsor Art Gallery, and it's bringing art out into the streets within the city. There's a whole journey that you can do. There's an app that allows you to interact and to engage directly with the different art pieces and the innovation that each of these art pieces expresses. And then it drives people back to the art gallery, people who might not have seen the art gallery, who might not go to the art gallery otherwise, and it brings it out to a much larger public. AT&T Discovery, whole different scale. AT&T, obviously a public company or private company that invested in a large public space, a number of different canvases, the large screen, a bandstand, lighting in the fountain, and a kind of pergola over people's heads. So this is really interesting placemaking because it is privately funded, but it's really giving back to the community and giving a place to the community. And then we've layered onto it recently and integrated a new element, which is a kind of responsive backdrop. They hold a lot of musical events here. So it's basically a program that allows the different types of music, be it R&B or hip hop or jazz or pop music, to generate images through the rhythm of the music and create a backdrop that radiates out throughout the overall space and creates a kind of virtual set design. Olivier already talked about AR, but how do you create a landmark, which is the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and create an enhanced experience through the use of AR and augmented reality? And to finish up, I'm going to go back to the bridge. For those who don't know, in Canada, we had a system of residential schools where, this is in the last century, where children in Indigenous communities were actually taken away from their families to be, brainwashed, I guess, into adopting either English or French culture instead of their own cultures. And we've found at one point there was found the remains of a number of children that were unexplained around the sites of these residential schools. And so what happened is all of the mass across the country went at half mast for a significant period of time. And the bridge itself and the society that runs the bridge decided to develop what they call the kind of half mast mode for the bridge, which allows it to respect mourning and respect difficult situations. And so to sort of wrap up, when we talk about digital placemaking or multimedia placemaking, for me, it's about the stories that are being told. It's about what we're communicating. It's not necessarily about the technology. And sometimes the lesser technology is the best technology there is. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to look. I'm looking very much forward to the questions.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was fascinating to listen to you, and we could have continued on and on. It was almost like a course on digital placemaking. So thanks a lot for sharing with us your processes and all of your ideas behind digital placemaking. So I will now ask all of the speakers to come back on stage, and so we start our Q&A. We received quite a fair bit of questions already, so we will take them on. But before embarking on that, just to thank once again David, Olivier, and Cheryl for sharing your journey, your creative process, your ideas, and this represents how diverse is digital placemaking, from making, crafting, creating really those objects, those mesmerizing objects, all the way to augmented reality, metaverse, and so on. And finally, to really go back to, as you mentioned in one of your slides, Cheryl, it is the process, not the result. It's really the process that matters the most in digital placemaking, and also to reflect the pulse of the city. And that's fascinating. So that's what we'll be talking about as well. So maybe we can take on some of the questions that and I see them like continuing arriving. So we will start with David. Thanks a lot again for sharing your experience. So like we noticed whimsical thread across your work. So where do you get your inspiration from?
Wow. Whimsical. Can I share something which I didn't share earlier? I was involved in Web 1 and did a lot of interactive stuff. Surprisingly, when further on into the years, probably into my 8th year, I felt a little bit jaded because I felt whatever I was doing lives inside the screen only. And I wanted so much to live outside that screen. So I gave myself a mission. It's like, could I do the same thing without a screen at all? And hence you see all the interpretation of the insert coin stuff is they were done without a screen. So I was asking myself, can I create animation if there's no screen? So what do I have to do? I have to learn about mechanization, pick up motto, how should I shift things and move them around? So I didn't realize that once I headed that direction, it opens an entirely new field. So having said that, some of the things that you see that whimsical, they are probably not directly inspired by creative direction, but they actually inspired by a technological direction. For example, there are certain sensors that can do a special thing, like the light sensor that you see that people bring a torch. So we discovered that sensor. So we're thinking, how can we use it in a creative manner and create a magical moments for our user, for our visitors?
Okay. Thanks for sharing, and also like to go back a little bit also on your own history and how did you start on all of that. So thanks again, David. So we have another question.
Yes. Okay. This question would be for Ollie. So we've seen a lot of kind of your work with a lot of artists, and you really are connecting sort of the technological aspects with the more creative aspects. So working technology and culture working together. So what is your approach to the project? Obviously, there's so much diversity and very different clients that you work with. So is it different? Is it different when the end goal is to educate? As opposed to your some other clients where there are more commercial projects, and how would you differentiate between, or would you?
Interesting question, because if you look at it, the end goal is to educate, which is mainly what we want to do, is to educate with our projects, right? We're not looking at commercial kind of projects at all. What we really mainly to do is to educate and inspire people with our projects, and our approach to it really starts with research, right? You need to understand the overall scope, everything what it's about, all the ins and outs and the facts of it in order to educate properly and dive into that subject. Also together with the artist, for example, and hard-hitting problems in the world like the plastic pollution crisis. You need to understand where it comes from. And therefore, I think research is key, therefore, to start off with. But if my personal opinion, when I compare it with a commercial project, in the end, you kind of want to educate the people as well if you work on a commercial project, right? In terms of educating why you should buy something. So it does intertwine with it, but with us, with our approach, it's really research, and we ideate and we define the concept and also test, right? Test if it leaves an impact, because that's the most important part that we want to do with our projects, is to leave an impact so that it's memorable, that you have key takeaways with it. And whereas with commercial projects, it's more the key takeaway is buy this product, for example. Our key takeaways is take action in terms of maybe it's behavioral change. Instead of choosing a plastic bottle, grab your reusable one everywhere you go. And that is by reinforcing the educational factor, is by understanding the subject the best. I think that's the main approach that I also like to take, is just to research, and therefore test as well, in order to see if you get to the right approach and if the key takeaways are really taken into consideration and people's behavior mainly, and to inspire.
Yeah, I think it's important what you mentioned to make an impact. to make something memorable, and that people will remember, and that will share, and that will really like leave a trace. So on that, I would like to ask a question to Cheryl. Since we're talking about like making an impact, so how can we make digital experiences more inclusive? And on that, do you feel that it leaves some people behind? Because if we talk about making an impact, if you talk about digital experiences for the ones that are not in digital experience or digital world, we leave them behind. So how do you look into that?
Well, I feel like, you know, as some of the projects that I presented, yes, you would need some kind of digital tool, but not the majority of them. And if I look at, like, it's a lot about bringing stories to public spaces and animating and activating public spaces. And I feel like if I look at what's happening in the discussions we're having right now, if you think back on all of these stakeholders, people are collaborating together, like we're putting together government funded projects that are asking for private intervention or private spaces, and then working very closely with community groups to build these projects and make sure that they're reaching the audiences. I think, you know, again, when we go back to the process, I think that this is what I'm really seeing right now. And I think as long as we're bringing these, like we're less about, we're about multimedia entertainment and getting people to have an impact and to understand things and to be excited and to have fun together and to get back together. And I feel like as long as we're activating the public space and we have the right people around the table, then we're as inclusive as possible. And I think one thing that's important is that you're intervening at different scales. It's not just through the phone, but it's walking around, it's looking at new things. Like if you look at the art gallery project in the streets, the phone brings you a different experience, but you can also experience it in other ways without having the phone. And it gets you to know your city, it gets you to know the artists, and it gets you hopefully visiting the museum and bringing greater community value.
Yes, it's really like looking back into the built environment and to see how digital solutions can be implemented inside. So it's not just basically a phone or like a digital companion, but it is more also how digital solutions can be inserted in the built environment for people to interact perhaps in a low-tech way, although it is backed up by digital solutions. So Ola, you have another question?
It's very interesting because we see the resonating sort of thread in all of your works, because contrary to what some people might think, digital, you all are bringing people together. It does not become an isolating tool, but you know, it is becoming a tool that connects people to places and with one another. So on that note, it's a question to all three speakers, perhaps getting perspective from all three of you. What are some of the challenges that you have been facing when working with digital environments? And do you think that digital can recreate physical experiences, or do you feel that there are still some physical experiences that cannot be replicated? And how can digital and physical reconcile with that? I think we'll start with David.
Yes.
Okay, good question. I think for our work at Coin, we kind of reconcile digital and physical, and that's where I was saying maybe I should stop the screen part and make things alive and be physical, and such that we can move this to public spaces.
Okay.
Great.
So,
thank you, David.
Yes.
Ollie, what about you? And what is your perspective?
Yeah, so the challenges, right, that you face with technology sometimes technology breaks as well, and we're working with frontier technology, which sometimes it just doesn't work always, and we have to be compliant with that. It's not like, oh, it's not working. It's a experience, but these are certain challenges as well. Also with which Cheryl touched upon as well, with inclusiveness, right? How to make it as inclusive as possible is how we think it as well with other minority groups who are maybe are unable to experience certain things. So we try to think in our approach with certain projects as well. How can we make it as exclusive as possible with the AR experience that we produce? It needs to also be run in countries where the internet speed is maybe very low and that they can't access it very well. So the experience needs to be very easy accessible in that way and that sense. But to also answer the question about the physical and the digital environment, right? I got very inspired by this YouTuber who spent 2 weeks long in virtual reality, completely isolated.
Two weeks in virtual reality.
2 weeks, yeah, doing everything you can do. It sounds but he did his meditation, he did his meetings, he's still connected with other people in a different way and still seeing other people. But the most interesting part, his takeaway from it was like, he missed the natural connection that something digital could never replicate. That certain, almost like a sixth sense that humans may have when they meet with each other physically. That is something that as human connections could never, that digital environments could never replicate, is that the smell of nature, right? That really, that smell and that feeling you have towards with nature and connections you have and you build up with the people around you. I think that is going to be a very tough part going forward, but we must never forget to always connect with the real world and not let see technology as a tool, right? Something to help us, to aid us with, not to replace certain things, but really to help us and not to replace.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your view and Cheryl on your end. What do you think of all of that?
Well, I think I'll touch on both questions at the same time. One of the challenges, especially during the pandemic, is when we're working with digital tools, we get disconnected from the physical and we stay in our head and we're creating within our head. Whereas at Moment Factory, like our tagline is, we do it in public. It's all about bringing people together and bringing people to connect. So it's bringing people like out in the space, like Olivier said, it's about the smells, it's about the wind, it's about walking through space. Movement's a really big part of public space, right? That when you're in the screen, you don't have that. So I think we think about is the digital is one of many tools, but like you say, like you see in the Jacques Cartier project, it's, toning down has a bigger message. Toning down the digital has a bigger message as not. And the digital is just a tool to bring people together. So it's one of many pieces, including the public realm, including the space and the architecture that we play with. So we just have to be really careful to keep the balance.
Yeah. But on that, it's interesting because we've been experiencing a pandemic for 2 years, and it is still happening. It's not as if it is like suddenly gone, it is still there. And so digital placemaking and all of these questions about will digital platform replace basically the reality? And so we talk about virtual reality, and even more now, metaverse that is ramping up. So these are true questions from our audience, from all of us, on like what will digital world replace the real world? And so on that, the question that we have from the audience as well, it is how the pandemic has changed your way of creating, of engaging, and basically performing all of this digital placemaking. So that is something that is quite strong in what has happened. So maybe who wants to take on that question about how the pandemic has changed your way of creating towards digital placemaking?
Well, sorry, if I can take this question. Right? It's more, if you look at the pandemic, people were separated. You couldn't see your loved ones. You couldn't come together in a safe way. Because what we try to reimagine then is, okay, instead of bringing people physically to a certain place, you could also bring them closer together virtually, which is then the best alternative, right? To cross borders, basically, in that sense. So I'll go back in what inspired me to really focus on using tech for good. And back in Amsterdam, I developed this concept called Time to Travel VR, where we developed the concept based on the IDEO design methodology to design an experience, whatever experience could be, and we chose the group immobile elderly people. And during our research, we noticed that they were just wanted to go out to be happy again, but they couldn't go out. So how can you make them go out? And that was through technology with virtual reality. So then we designed an experience very highly curated to that audience, to elderly people, and transported to new cities and relived memories again. Therefore, and saw that like they relived memories from being an old lady who couldn't move anymore back to London. And then when we tested it out with her, she took it off, and I see her cry. And she, what's up?
I knew you would say that.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you okay? It's like, yeah, well, that's where my life started basically, and I could never go be there. So in light of the pandemic, bringing it back, right? It's trying to find, that's what humans do. We're trying to find the best way possible to reconnect in certain ways, and which also has a positive impact. I mean, the Sustainable Singapore exhibition that we launched was, first of all, just to be online, and therefore, okay, has been shown online worldwide, but then it's also been shown physically in other parts of the world, in Korea, in Austria. Singapore art is being represented in Austria, which is a great venture, from starting from something that sounds so horrible like a pandemic, and then finding the solution to react to it in both a physical and a virtual way, to still keep on bringing together, because that's also the core business of digital placemaking, is enhancing that experience and how to bring them together. Right.
Thanks a lot, Olivier, because I see that the time is, we start to run out of time, so we might take two more questions.
So, of course, we just haven't been able to keep up with all of the questions. Yes. So we'll ask the ones that I think most people, or at least we would love to know more about. So I think, Ollie, you spoke about, like, I guess, connecting sort of the different types of audiences, older audiences, to memories, to places, using sometimes digital technologies. So I guess it will be also a question to everyone. Do you, of course, technologies can be made obsolete. How do you ensure that people connect to the experiences? And then the technology is not sort of becomes a product that becomes obsolete in a few years. How do you continue that connection?
Keep up, basically, keep up with all of that, and like maybe it's a question of we can ask to share it, because Moment Factory is like even developing new technologies. Yeah. So how do you keep up with all of that? Like to be always like, on the dot of all of the new tech.
And to make sure that people are also, it doesn't go over their heads.
Yeah.
I think, it's always about the experience we're trying to create, and the connections we're trying to encourage. We have a lab, so we're trying to be ahead of the curve by testing things out ahead of time, so that when it gets delivered to one of our clients or one of our collaborators, we know it's good for a certain period of time. We also really invest heavily in the system. It's the driver that's important, and then you can add on and evolve and change and scale up the interventions, as opposed to just saying, here's one solution, here's one experience, and it doesn't change. Because when we go on, especially in the permanent projects that we do, we're there for the long haul. And so I think it's that, and ensure that it's easy to fix, it's easy to update, it's easy to change if it needs to be. But one of our first projects, Los Angeles Airport's been there almost 10 years now, and it's still running fine. So yeah.
Good.
I will have one last question for David. Because it's always a burning question from our audience. You did so many things, you explored so many things, and the level of creativity is fascinating. and where you mix basically low-tech solutions with high-tech as well, digital solutions and so on. What would be your advice to a young designer that would be keen to explore similar fields?
Come and join me.
That's easy.
I think you will have to be very open. Like in my career, I have to change track and then start asking questions. If I don't use this tech, what other tech can I replace with? Or can I go very low tech, like in my case? And then that's somehow suddenly open a new field for me. So be open-minded, try different things, and then don't worry to fail much, and you learn faster. So I'm just showing you the nice side of the project, but there are many iterations we have to go through, failures we have to face, and how we come back up again and do a better job next time. So that's my advice for young people coming in. Be open and be courageous.
Thanks a lot. We saw some more questions arriving. They will be answered offline, so they will be shared with our audience. So no worries on that front. And before we hand over to Design Singapore to share a last addressing message to our audience, I would like once again to thank so much our speakers, David, Olivier, Cheryl. It was inspiring. It was fascinating. Like, you transported us. Like, I don't want to say in the metaverse, okay? You transported us onto a digital platform, and we were with you in all of your experiences. We were with you in when you are fabricating, exploring, crafting all of these experiences. So it was very exciting. We don't know if there will be a possible collaboration between the three of you,
which was one of the questions.
Let's see what the future will offer us. Yeah. So maybe that will happen. We don't know. So that will be also fantastic.
Yeah. And I think what we've seen that's very inspiring today is seeing how digital technologies are meant to connect people to places. And I think that's basically the resonating thought with all of us today. And hopefully this is where digital placemaking is going. It's really not disconnecting people from the physical, but creating those connections with people, with places, and with one another.
Yeah.
So I think we're just
and again, it's exactly what we do at SEGD, what we believe in at SEGD. So that this kind of experiences and to nurture also the next generation to learn from each other, to continue creating. And you can really see that from the three speakers today, and that's what we really love doing with Ola through our SEGD platform.
Yes. So stay tuned for more events.
Thanks again.
Thank you again.
We hand over to Design Singapore. There is one last word from Design Singapore.
Thank you, Jan, Olha, David, Ollie, and Cheryl for joining us today once again and for sharing your insights with us. And to you, our attendees, thank you for joining us till the end of the session. We hope that you've learned something new today. So before you go, we would really appreciate if you could take some time to share your feedback with us through a quick survey by scanning the QR code that you see on the left. A link to the survey can also be found in the Zoom chat right about now. And also, if you'd like to find out more programs that are happening at the National Design Center, you can scan the QR code that you see on the right. So this is where we'll all leave you now. Thank you all once again for joining us, and we hope to see you at our future events. Take care all, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.